What is up, guys? It's Jimbo here and welcome back to another build video. Today we're going through my ultimate endgame Titan build. I've wanted to update this since the start of the season purely because Classy Restoration is gone and I wanted to give the best way to play the endgame with Titan on solar. I'm going to be doing a void one and I'm also going to be doing it on the other classes as well because a lot of you are solo players, a lot of you also go into lost sectors as well, and you want a good build to be able to run through things. You may have seen a variety of other builds that are very similar to this, but this has got my own kind of spin on the type of things that I like to do. I've tweaked some things and I've really spent a lot of time, especially in the lost sectors, to make it feel nice, to make it feel like I'm doing all right. The footage that you will see on screen for some of it will be in the 1600 Master Lost Sector that was with the helmet that I was trying to grind for another Lorely Splendor. And from the footage you can see I rarely get low and full on red health as long as I keep the combo going. You do get dusted here and there, especially if you're not paying attention and certain modifiers are on. But for normal endgame content like dungeons at a higher difficulty without champions, with any of the raids you can run this. If you're not really running for DPS, you can also swap out a bunch of the mods to be able to get into DPS as well, to do more damage, so you're not kind of like a hindrance to that stuff, and I'll go through that a bit later on in the build as well. But this is a really fun build and I think it's going to be one that I use for a long time, and I recommend you using it as well. We'll have a void one out eventually. I'm going to start tweaking stuff, but let's jump into the subclass, all the mods, and talk about the build as a whole. Of course, we're going to be on Sunbreaker. The first thing we're going to have is Sol Invictus, solar ability, final blows, impacts, and defeat scorch targets, give you sunspots. Your abilities regenerate and they drain less when you're standing in a sunspot. You're going to be creating a lot of these, especially with Lorely Splendor as well. And when you apply scorch, and entering a sunspot, you also get restoration as well, so you're able to get healing. Roaring Flames is our second one. Final blows with solar abilities, ignitions increase the damage of your solar abilities. While Roaring Flames is active, your uncharged melee attack deals damage and scorches targets as well. This is going to be great, especially if you've not got your hammer on you at that specific moment. Your hammer, your throwing hammer, is going to give you cure. This is going to be the bonk of the build. I love this. It's going to be one of my favorite abilities in the game right now, and I've got a rhythm with it. And then for grenades, you can run fusion nades here. If you really want to make yourself healing and make sure you have restoration at all times, you can go with healing grenades. You can also go with thermite, and you can also go with the regular solar nades. We're on Sunbreaker. We're not on Burning Wall, unfortunately. I don't think it's just as good. But let's go through the fragments. The first one is Ember of Torches. This is really easy because Ember of Torches makes you radiant, which gives you a damage buff. I think it's a 15% damage buff. I can't quite remember the exact number, but essentially you won't have a well here or anything like that. So if you're playing solo, this is going to be your empowered buff, which is fantastic. Definitely recommend putting Ember of Torches on. We then have Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. That's what we're going to be doing a hell of a lot. Then we have Ember of Blistering. Defeating targets with solar ignitions grants grenade energy. You're going to be throwing out a bunch of grenades as well. And then you have Ember of Solace. Radiant and restoration effects applied to you have an increased duration. The reason why I've not gone with Ember of Empyrean here is because when you're in Master and more endgame content, you may not always get the opportunity to kill something with a solar weapon or an ability, even though you will be bonking stuff a lot. And I just like having the extended duration for Radiant and Restoration as well, instead of just having to continually keep up killing stuff, because there's periods where you won't be doing that sometimes. Now let's talk about the exotic, Lorely Splendor. This is the crux of the build. This is the main one. This thing has probably one of the best perks in the game, which is Cauterizing Flame. When you're critically wounded with a full class ability energy, or when you cast a barricade, you create a sunspot at your location that has improved restoration effects. You can pop your shield with this, but you can also, if you go low, you will get a sunspot right next to you, which increases your healing because of restoration. Especially when you're running tier 100 resilience, you are going to be negating a lot of damage, and then also the sunspot is going to help you with the restoration as well. If we go over the mods that's on the Lorely Splendor, we have one melee wellmaker, harmonic siphon, a hands-on, which gains bonus energy on melee kills, and then a resistance mod. You can swap out the hands-on, or the harmonic essence, and go with Inferno Whip, which will allow you to stop champions this season. But I'm not going to be using too many seasonal mods because obviously I want to keep this for season 18, and then you can use this as you go on further. Onto our arms, we have a solar pair. We have impact induction, causing damage with melee, reduces the grenade cooldown. We also have elemental ordnance, defeating a combatant with a grenade spawns an elemental well, so you're going to be spawning those. I do have focusing strike on it, but you won't have that when the season is over. It's just good to have on right now. You could probably swap this out for any other mods, especially if you're going to be swapping it out to do different barriers or different mods that you'll need for champions and like GMs and such. And then I have a resilience mod on there. On the armor, or the chest piece, I just have resistance, and then I have Font of Might. Font of Might is going to be great here because you get a 25% boost to solar weapons, and this stacks with Radiant. It doesn't, unfortunately, Radiant doesn't stack with Well, but Font of Might does. It's fantastic. I've been playing around with this quite a lot recently, and I'll go over some DPS strats that you can use with Font of Might that's going to be able to increase your damage a whole lot. But obviously, we've got Thermoshock plating and solar resistance. You could swap all these out. You could maybe go with a Void plate if you really wanted to, and then have all the resistances for that particular season. On the legs, we have Well of Life. Now, Well of Life is really good because you get 10 seconds of healing when you pick up a solar elemental well. We're going to be picking those up. We are also going to be generating orbs of power, so we got double recuperation, which increases our health as well, our health regen. And Well of Life is just that little extra on top of extra. You may not always need it, but it is handy. And there's sometimes where I've tanked entire barrages of the Cabal hitting you with the like the missile stuff. I've been hit multiple times in the face, just stand there and I tank everything. It's pretty damn crazy. Lastly, on the mark, we have 2 Bomber, which reduces our class ability, and then we have Bountiful Wells, which increases everything as well. Now, there is variations of this build. What I would recommend is you have a bond that is stasis, or a mark that is stasis. Go into Elemental Time Dilation and 2 Utility Kickstart, and drop the Bountiful Wells. Reason being is that if you do this, your Font of Might and your Elemental, your Well of Life as well will have increased duration. And if you wanted to just go into DPS and you are doing this, for example, in a raid, you can drop Elemental Ordnance and also Well of Life and put 3 Font of Mights on, and then Melee Wellmaker and also Elemental Time Dilation to be able to get the most amount of damage as well. Weapons don't really matter here as long as you have something like a Callus Mini Tool that is allowed to get Incandescent. I'm working currently with the Amit IR2 to try and get that in with Incandescent. And then you've just got a slew of different exotics. Witherhoard is going to be fantastic Arbalist for your barriers. And then also this season, I'm going to be looking for a fixed odds that I can craft with Incandescent on it as well, or Rampage, whatever you want to go for. But especially Cataclysm, this is going to work especially well with, purely because you're going to get that Font of Might, which gives you that 25% increase of damage to your solar weapons, and also the 35% weapon buff that Bait and Switch gives you. Fantastic build, and I absolutely love it. It's probably one of my favorite builds I've ever done. If you get into a situation where you're struggling, you can just bonk stuff with a hammer. You'll get to see it in the gameplay. I'll be using that obviously quite a lot. And the hammer is that you don't really get too many weapon kills, but just having that hammer on hand to be able to smack an enemy, get all your buffs at once, tank a bunch of damage, and you are on a roll. I love this build. I've tested this in Master Lost Sectors. I'm going to try it out in GMs a little bit later on this season. A lot of the problems with endgame builds is that you need to make sure that you keep up the rhythm of them, and sometimes you don't get that. But when you get into Master and especially GM content, if you can kill red bars with the hammer and get your buffs to like get going, you can even swap out the Elemental Ordnance if you really want and have double Well of Life and stack it up to be able to get increased effects as well. But yeah, that's the build. I'm going to leave the dim link in the description so you guys can check this out as well. There's like 2 mods from this specific season, but apart from that, there's nothing else. So it's all seasonal, no seasonal mods pretty much. And you can obviously adjust it to the way that you want. But if you've enjoyed the video and it has been helpful, please make sure you leave a like on it, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. And if you want to become a member on the channel, you can do. If you want to go that little bit extra instead of just liking and subscribing, and you want to support me a little bit more, then feel free to do so. Check all the links out in the description, as always, to continue the conversation over on my socials. And this has been It's Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.